Hi there YouTube, my name is Nico and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. If you remember, I built the studio that I'm sitting in right now in a previous video. So for today's video, I'm going to show you how I put together a DIY adjustable desk. Before I decided to build one of these desks, I wanted to buy one first. So I looked up the prices of these desks, and lo and behold, they were quite expensive. I wasn't willing to pay all of that money for a desk that is pretty plain looking. So I decided to see, is it possible to build my own desk? So when I decided to build a desk rather than buy a desk, I had to start looking at some different plans of how to make one of these desks. I must make it clear that the first attempt failed horribly. I tried to make the legs out of speaker stands, and this really did not work very well. It was unstable and very flimsy. So for my second attempt, I looked at some more plans on YouTube and on other sites on the internet. Finally, I saw a design that I could possibly do myself. Of all of the materials you can use to make one of these desks, I decided to use wood. And of course, I wanted to keep the cost as low as possible, so I used pine wood. Pine is fairly cheap and you can buy it at most hardware stores. The next thing I had to think of was how to actually make the desk adjustable. For this, of course, you use linear actuators. I decided to use the 300mm linear actuator that works with 12 volts. This is by far the most expensive part of this desk. They cost quite a lot of money, but they can hold about 50 kilograms each. I decided to use two. Next step was to then go to the hardware store and get all of my wood. I had to make a lot of measurements to make sure once I put this together that it would all fit. The linear actuator with its brackets connected to it is a length of 550 millimeters. So I had to make sure that when I put my table together, that the pillars would be a little bit less than 550 millimeters. Because if it was longer than 550 millimeters, the actuators are quite strong and will literally pull this whole desk apart. So I had to make sure that once the actuator is in its minimum spot, it would not have started to pull on the actual table. So this is the design that I decided to go for. Two wood pillars on either side of the desk with two bases. The inside would be connected with a piece of wood just to stabilize them. To make the telescopic pillars of this table, I used 4 pieces of wood. Each of them was 540 millimeters long, and I put them together like a jigsaw puzzle, as you can see in the picture. To fasten those ends together, I used some wood glue and also some strong wooden screws. Those two pillars would then be fastened to the I-beam structure base of this table. The top piece would be an I-beam made of wood to support the table top. As you can see, I also used some 90-degree angle iron brackets to make sure that those two pillars stay upright and are stable. When you put it together like this, you will see that the top I-beam is actually going to fit over those two pillars. In the next photograph, you will see that the I-beam was now fastened to the table top, and the two pistons were also put together. Those two pistons will now move up and down inside of the two pillars. It is not there to give extra support to the table. It's not there to hold it up. However, it is there to help make sure that the table is stable. Now, in hindsight, I could have made this a little bit better. Instead of having just the two sides, having 4 would have been better on each corner of the table. However, that means that I would have built 4 of those pillars, which would be a lot of wood, and it also means that the table would become quite heavy. The whole telescopic adjustable nature of speaker stands was very appealing to me. If I changed the 2 wooden pillars to 4 telescopic speaker stands, that could have actually done a better job than what I currently have, and it would have been lighter. The next thing I decided to do was to put this table on some wheels. Okay, and then of course I had to make sure that all the electrics would work perfectly, and for this I used an on-off-on switch. Now, the reason why I had to do that is to change the polarity of the voltage that I'm going to send to the actuators. If you connect it positive to positive, negative to negative on the actuator, it will go out. If you reverse the polarity, the actuator will then retract. Using this type of switch, on the one side, you will actually make the table go up, and if you switch it to the other side, the table will go down. And over here you can see that I fitted my switch nicely into the table. Okay, so there you can see this is the table completed with the actuator in place. You will see that the actuator is on the inside of the pillars, connected between the top and the bottom I-beams, basically supporting the whole table. A little bit later, I decided to make the table a little bit more stable, especially when it is fully extended. The tabletop was a little bit wobbly. To give some extra support, I used heavy-duty drawer sliders, as you can see in the picture. If you look closely, you will see that there's a little bit of a gap between the tabletop and the pillar. If this gap was not there, the actuator will actually rip the table apart, trying to retract all the way. So, in this case, the actuator will fully retract without having to start ripping the table apart. Now you can fine tune this quite a bit more if you want to. I just decided to give it a little bit of a gap to make sure that this won't happen in my case. Then I had to start doing the electrical work of the table to make sure that it is safe to use and also that all the cables would be out of the way. In the picture you will see that I have over there a power supply, which is a 12-volt power supply that will be able to supply up to 5 amps at 12 volts. This is more than enough for the 2 actuators that I have. I then routed some of my cables to make sure that they are out of the way. I also connected a multiplug for 2 extra power sources and 2 USB ports, which is quite important for me to have while I'm using the equipment that I'm going to be using on this table. The one USB port is actually used for the lamp that I have on the desk there. As you can see from this photo, I also added an adjustable boom for a camera as well as a microphone. The light is also adjustable for color temperature as well as intensity. And this is my whole setup put together. I've got my iPad there, my launch key 49, a little mixer as well as a microphone with a boom and a light, and all of it can be connected together. The little USB mixer on the side there is very important to make sure that all the signals coming out of that mixer can go into the iPhone or into the iPad and be recorded. This is actually how I'm recording this video currently. Now, one of the questions that someone might have was, how much did this table actually cost you to make? And I'm happy to report that even after the first failed attempt, the total cost of this table is still about half the price of a table that you can find online. So for me, this was totally worth it. It's not the prettiest table that you can find out there, but it definitely does the job. So that will be all for this video. And if you haven't already, please remember to click the subscribe button and the like button, and leave a comment for me in the section down below. You can also write some comments there stating what you would have done different, giving some better ideas perhaps. I do not doubt for a second that there will be lots of you with way better ideas of building this table. And until I see you in the next video, cheers.